This is Leaders Who Scale, and I'm Jeff Siegel. I've worked with thousands of companies over the years, and I'm fascinated by seeing how many of them grow and scale. Join me as we learn from the leaders of growing companies and share that knowledge. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class accounting, advisory, and QuickBooks and Acumatica Cloud ERP services. Today's guest is a leader and entrepreneur. He has failed more times without going bankrupt than he can count. He's led his company to 50% revenue growth in the last 6 years. His team navigated the pandemic without laying off a single team member. He's actually challenging his company to open 3 more stores in the next 5 years. And he's developed organizational structure and centralized the operation. And now, currently, he's preparing for his next challenge of opening a new store that's 3 times the normal footprint after renovating an old movie theater. He's a huge nerd. I want to welcome the Vice President of Quality Home, a Texas-based retailer that sells furniture and home furnishings. Welcome, Jordan Barrick. Welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to this podcast. You know, most of the people I've spoken to before, they haven't really been on the retail side. A lot of services, a lot of landscapers, and so it'll be interesting to hear how you're scaling your company. And so, the biggest thing I always ask is, what is your biggest challenge for scaling Quality Home?
I think we said it in the beginning, just the amount of failures that have happened without going bankrupt in the process. And so launching new endeavors, I've had a lot of opportunity to try different things. Thankfully, in the position that I'm at, the founder and CEO currently basically went through the same process when he started it. Almost ran the business in the ground, ready to take the keys and hand it back over to who he bought them from. And so he set a really good model, kind of that we have permission to screw up, as long as we don't, go out of business in the process. We got a lot of people to make sure that we're leading well and responsible for. So, that's the biggest thing: dealing with failure, keeping the momentum, even if you are failing in different business segments. And handling conflict well. I think that's probably the number one thing for me.
So, I mean, how do you actually go about doing that? Like you said, you failed many times. So, how do you keep on getting back on that horse, I guess? What drives you?
Well, I think for me, trying to make sure that I count the cost before I go into any endeavor. Some of it's we're a fairly small company at the moment. We've had some growth, but being able to look at how much this is going to cost, cash strapping, and making sure that you are looking at this as cheap as possible. And I'm very, very honest with any vendor I'm working with, asking for help or how we can launch a new endeavor. I think one of the big things, for us, retail, long before the pandemic, I was trying to get into e-commerce. I kind of got brought in from retail, working for another retailer. My father-in-law actually took me out to dinner and said, "Hey, you're working in this other retail. I have retail. You should come work here, and we can start going after website and start going after different tactics." Lo and behold, I didn't know he was kind of gearing me up to step in and lead the company over time. But at that moment, I just wanted to see what can we do with e-commerce. So we started trying to do what everybody does and go to Amazon and start selling products on there. Had everything set up through UPS and some really, really good software and tech. We were pretty forward thinking, and I went from making $3,000 and feeling really good about myself. In then 72 hours, I had lost all of that because the freight rates weren't right. And so it was complete loss of $3,000. So just complete reversal. Tried during the pandemic, tried to launch an online mattress brand, where you buy a mattress, we donate a mattress. Really fun concept. Loved it. It's obviously been tried and is out there. And yeah, that totally did not work. And so just trying to look at new and different ideas, test them, prepare yourself, put all of your energy that you have, whatever capacity you have extra, and then don't don't lose your confidence in the process when it doesn't work, because it's just not going to work all the time.
Yeah. No, that's true. But the things that will do work, I think, will take off. So, the goal is to have those ones take off a lot more than the failures.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So you currently have 2 stores. You want to open, you have 5 stores in the next 5 years, it sounds like, and you're getting ready to open a third. Is that what
So we're actually closing down one to transition over to this store. So this is the first. We have an offsite warehouse. We were able to move all of our operations for warehouse to that location, and where we're trying to go with this building. This is a real estate play. We own the property as well as the area around it. Want to be able to develop that. That's kind of a separate company that we founded to be able to do that. The retail operation itself, we're going from, I've got a store in furniture that's fairly small. It's about 15,000 square feet, and I've got 2,000 of that eaten up in offices already. So where we're going to this new building is 38,000. And so I've got 8,000 feet upstairs that we're going to be putting for our corporate offices, and downstairs is going to be a full 31, 30 and 8. But we want to be able to create quite the flagship, and we've been in remodel since the day after Christmas, and now, like everybody, I'm waiting on chips and things like that to make our elevator work, and other stuff that I never thought I would be dealing with as a very, very small retailer growing into slightly less small retailer. But the biggest thing, I mean, for example, one of the things right now, typically in our industry, so we're home furnishings. We're also a finance company doing just basic installment loans for clients. We have a mechanism for our people to finance where everyone's approved for something, and we don't charge a lot of interest, and try to just work with low to medium credit clients. And then we have obviously traditional finance like you would see in other retailers. But the biggest challenge that we're seeing right now is we weren't expecting the kind of recession era to come back with a force starting around March. Typically in our industry, when you're doing a store move, you throw up a couple of signs and say, hey, we're moving. And then people just really get excited about that. And we mark everything down, and it works. Well, we put up signs, marked everything down, and nobody came by. And we're in the messy middle right now, getting ready. So divided attention between 2 major projects, really learning on the job as fast as I can. And asking people questions that I know that have gone before me, either in a performance group or anybody that can get my hands on, just to say, hey, can you meet with me and explain how do you do, your part of commercial real estate? So, or whatever is going on for the day-to-day challenges. I think in the entrepreneurial space, being able to be shameless and ask people for their time, as long as you're kind and tell the truth and buy them a cup of coffee or lunch, you can get pretty far.
I mean, I find entrepreneurs do genuinely want to help each other because we're all in the same boat, regardless of the industry, business. Yeah, I was going to ask you later on, like, who do you go to, or where do you go for some of that advice, whether it's a mentor or, I'm part of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, so I meet with other business owners on a monthly basis. But do you have a place you go to? Just friends, family, just
yeah. So a number of years ago, I was really freaked out because my father-in-law had went and got himself elected mayor of the city of Mesquite, and kind of threw the keys at me without telling me. And I went, I don't know what I'm doing, sir. I I had basically given myself the title of vice president at that point because we had no hierarchy or structure. There was one guy on top, and everybody kind of just did everything. So at that moment I went, I've got to figure this out. I've got to learn some things on the job. So I looked into the EntreLeadership program. There's a book, EntreLeadership, written by Dave Ramsey about 20 years ago. One of your other guests talked about it. It's really, really funny because I went to one of those conferences, joined up with a mastermind group. So we have a monthly meeting. That's really helpful because it's people outside your industry. I also sought out and found a group that I could belong to in our industry that was a performance group. gather a couple of times a year, compare metrics. It really helped seeing what these much, much larger companies tend to many, many times multiplier size of ours are doing with their numbers. What are they looking at? What are they benchmarking? And then trying to make my numbers match as far as format wise and compare percentages. So these guys have been incredibly helpful, but it took a lot. It took me a couple of years to be able to get into that. I had to really go to industry events and meet with these guys and make sure they knew that I wasn't going to take this data and play around with it or try to use it against them. I have somebody that's literally 50 miles from me that's become extremely close friends that we compare our industry numbers, which is in our industry pretty close. A lot of the home furnishings industry wants to, not share with anybody that's in a tri-state area. So it's been really, really good there. And we're a faith-based company, so I just started reading the Bible and Proverbs and reading through like what wisdom can I find for how to run this business well, from in the industry, outside the industry, from my faith background, from who's doing it right. And anybody, some of the best advice I was given early on was just ask. Worst case, they're going to say no, and that's fine. And you may get some doors shut in your face. And it's not about sales. It's about, on this process, it's just about sending a message and saying, "Hey, could I please do this?" If they say no, no problem, or what have you.
No, that's good advice. And like I said earlier, like entrepreneurs typically want to help each other, because it's that camaraderie. It's like we're all in the same boat together, go through the same issues, whether it's hiring, financing, supply chain, like all that stuff. So I was going to ask you, so the company, the actual home furnishing business started in 75, I think, 1975.
That's correct.
How was it when you came? How long have you been in, and what was that like coming in to this organization that had been around for a number of years and having to make changes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's really good. So 1975 was founded as a rent-to-own company. It was bought by my father-in-law. Actually, what's crazy is his parents bought it and said, "Hey, son, you need to come run this thing. We don't have anyone to run it." And he was working in HR for a really large company at the time in the 80s and was doing great. And he's like, "I don't want to do that." So he out of familial obligation and character, I guess, went and did it right, wrong, or otherwise. And then he stuck with it for now 34, 35 years. No, 36 years now. So really interesting to see that kind of dedication to something that you didn't even want to do in the first place. So I've been with the company since 2011, married my wife. About 6 months later, I got asked to come on board. One of the things that was really interesting, I came from working at GameStop and working my way up there, was going to go corporate, and that was my kind of goals. And I learned so many things about running small ticket retail, benchmarks, looking at making sure that I'm getting all of my people in the right place, trying to hit our numbers in a small ticket retail in rough markets with basically teenagers and some people in the early 20s, maybe. But trying to run that with really limited resources and figuring that out and having a lot of fun doing it. I learned more about business at GameStop than I thought. And I'm a big nerd, and I thought it would be, learn about video games. Nope, very little about video games. It's very much, they are a hard driving retailer, or they were at the time. And I've been out of that for a long time, but so about a decade, 11 years working in this, about 8 years in leadership. And it's been interesting trying to walk into an organization that at the time was on DOS-based system, was completely decentralized, had people there that I was now coaching and training and developing that were way older than me. And I was, I guess, 22, 23 at the time, and trying to figure this out without being disrespectful to the people that, got us here. But also trying to challenge and grow and encourage those team members and leaders that we had in there to move to the next level. And we've got to change in certain aspects. So it was, launching new software to centralize our operation, being able to get out of the DOS-based system, which was super robust. No one was ever hacking it, but it sure didn't do much for what we needed to do other than our lending. So it's been quite a wild ride, and I've had to learn on the job quite regularly how to handle conflict, lean into it, not run away from it. And yeah, that's probably been the biggest lesson so far.
What is the your management team like? Do you have some of the people who have been there for years, or do you have a whole new over the last since you've been there? Have you
Good question.
People just
Yes, great question. So I have we've started to build this team over the last few years. My leadership team. I've got a warehouse and distribution manager that has been here a few years. He came from a much bigger organization. And we're so lucky to have them. I have 2 store managers currently. I have my business support manager and who handles accounts payable, receivable, and actually has started taking on customer service for a little while until we can transition and branch that off. I have a finance manager. He's been with us for 20 years or 20 plus years. And then I have an e-commerce manager we just put in place in marketing. He handles online advertising and e-commerce. Currently, it's too many reporting direct to me. So we're trying to branch that out and start developing leadership there. My father-in-law, myself, are in the executive role, but we also have my wife as a part of the business. She does payroll and tax, so she's part-time. So she'll come in and kind of try to help us mediate whenever one of us is not explaining something correctly and the other one's not picking up what the other one's putting down between my father-in-law and I. But most of the time we've gotten to a good place where we can argue, and sometimes passionately, but still be able to move the ball forward and be respectful of one another. So that's kind of the skeleton of the leadership part. But as we look at this new endeavor and where we're going, we have to continue to add branches and promote. And we're currently looking for someone who can maybe run this store so I can promote one of my store managers to a general manager type level.
And do you, as a management team, or you have a lot of players, do you actually meet? Is there a rhythm to how you strategize or meet, or if it's a regular base or not, or like what's that look like? Because it sounds like you had a lot going on. You've got this renovation, and you're moving the store into this new place. Sounds like will you be closing down where it's coming from, or is that going to stay?
Yes. Thank the good Lord we're closing that down, because the shopping center that it's in, that we have been in since 1975, has had very little done to it. So we've had to do most of our own renovation on someone else's building. And it's been very frustrating, and pretty much all the tenants have left currently. So it's the darkest before the dawn is where we're feeling right now. We've got nobody else to share that shopping center with right now currently. There's a couple of retailers, I should say, that are over on the far end, but it's a big center, and so we sure feel alone. We meet every week, have our weekly meeting. I try to run that extremely diligently based off of Patrick Lencioni's book Death by Meeting, and really try to make sure that I'm valuing our people's time. We start on time, end on time. And then I also try to I have regular meetings with my leaders. I actually was having a challenging call this last week, because I really feel like one of the things that's been most challenged in my divided time, the building is 10 minutes away. So I don't really have a ton of commute time that I can have conversations or have meetings on the go. And I'm constantly having to go up there, and we had somebody install the fiber internet improperly yesterday. So I had to get up there and be like, no, that's not where it goes. Why did you even get in here? So just simple, but small, but very important things that are happening, have been killing my time with my leaders. So I started talking to some of my other peers yesterday. It's in one of my mastermind groups, being like, hey guys, I really feel like I'm letting these guys down. What do I do here? I don't want to rob my people of the time that they need. And I got some really good advice of just saying, like, hey, sometimes as leaders, we put too much emphasis on ourselves. They may not need that much time of you. You also may need to shift those times to 15 to 30-minute spots, depending on the leader. If they're a seasoned leader and they don't need as much, go for it. If they're a new leader, they need a little bit more time, go for it. And another guy, I said, what my takeaway was, that I was just going to have to look at my calendar. And he's like, leaders don't get to say, I just. And I was like, oh, you're so right. He's like, what are you actually going to do? And I was like, you're totally right. I'm going to sit with my calendar, I'm going to change a couple of things to try to make sure that I have, I'm going to make sure that I have time available for those people. And one of the things that evolved from this whole thing is, in the midst of all these challenges, I've been running around. The CEO and I have been battling back and forth, all of these things to try to drive sales, keep our stores open while pushing this new endeavor. And didn't realize some of these people that I brought in from other companies that are very valuable players, that are seasoned players, they're starting to think they're going to get laid off just because their sales are down and they're struggling. I'm going, oh my gosh, I violated the cardinal rule of where there is no vision, that people perish. My people think they're filling in blanks that I haven't said anything about. So just leaned into that immediately to say, hey guys, nobody's getting laid off. I may change who I'm hiring in the new store, but I'm not getting rid of the people that helped me get here. So we're not even close to thinking about that. We just got to move forward. And yes, it sucks right now, but we have an opportunity to move forward, and we got to stay the course. Yeah. So sometimes even my own momentum that I keep for myself, you've got to share that with your team to make sure they know we're going places. Are you coming with me?
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Yeah, because we get caught up in our own vision and what we're doing. And like you just said, sometimes we don't let our team know, especially with changes and even hiring, like, somebody, am I going to lose my job? Is someone going to be hired that I have to report to, and instead of going directly to Jordan, there's a lot of stuff that starts to happen at that point. So that's, yeah. Another question I was going to ask. So you have this challenge to open, have 5 stores, right, in the next 5 years, I think, right? So you have 2, and you'll stay with 2 right now because I always, everybody wants to scale, and I've actually never asked this question before, but what drives you to want to have 5 stores, or why not just like, hey, we have 2 great stores and we're just going to like keep going with it, and financing, or maybe we add more products. So it's not, it's just to the root of why do you want to scale in the first place?
Yeah, that's it's a really good question. For me, some of it's simple stuff, like when you have more stores in a market in our industry, not super close to where you're bastardizing your own market, but like when you're able to put multiple stores in your market, your marketing is a lot easier. Your budgets become a little bit easier because you can really hit one market and saturate for multiple store growth. I came from that mindset, and I guess I was trained up in it through GameStop, of grow, scale, develop talent, open new stores. If you're not growing, you're dying. And that's not always the important thing. It's growth for growth's sake is not always wise if you're not building a good foundation. I want to be able to build more opportunities for myself and my team. Being able to have that growth and see what can we do. But I'll tell you what, when I look at my performance group and I see people on there, and these are really good friends of mine, I'm really competitive. I'm not competitive in like a lot of things, but I'm extremely competitive when I see those numbers and I go, oh, I want to get that number down, or, oh, we've been the bottom of our performance group as far as scale and size the entire time. So I'm looking at the next guy going, okay, how do I get ahead of that? How do I boost a little bit further? And I think it's a healthy competition where we're spurring each other on to be better. And I guess I was talking to somebody else about this recently that asked me a similar question. I want to finish well. I'm 34. I've got 2 kids, love my wife, love my life, and have gone through some pretty challenging times as a kid through abuse and struggle, and had to do a lot of counseling through the pandemic to really work through that. And I'm a pretty open book, but I want to look at, say I go do something else. So right now, the plan is to, over the next 3 to 5 years, take over leadership of the company. CEO wants to be off doing other things. Totally get that, and retire. I want to either lead this thing well for my team, or if there's a better leader at that moment, get out of the way and support and develop other strategies for growth. But no matter what we do, I want to finish well. I want to look at when I'm 65 or 67 or 70, or average age, I think in the furniture business for retirement is like 80. But I want to look up, and I don't want to have been someone for my team that lets them down halfway along the way. I had addiction and almost lost my marriage just about 8-9 years ago. And sober now, clean from everything. But the biggest thing, and I don't want to overstate that, but the biggest thing that I had a problem with was telling the truth. I grew up in an abusive household. Mom kind of told me it was okay to lie, and that's really not a good character trait you should develop at a young age. And so I would lie to everybody around me and create this image of who I was supposed to be. And then I'd be a completely different person when no one was looking. Well, that's not integrity. That's not character. And regardless of where it comes from, I had to look and go, I have now almost lost my marriage. This has to change. And so from that point forward, for me, it's my Christian faith that gravitates and helps me. And I was a Christian beforehand, still doing screwed up stuff and lying all the time. And I had to learn my actions have consequences. And through that, being able to lead and have empathy for my team, I looked up and went, wow, okay, I went through this at 25. Thank God this didn't happen. I didn't have waste 40 years and have this realization 60 years in or 40 years in. I don't want to look up and find myself in a position where I've been blind for 40 years to all the rough edges of myself or my company, and my people are miserable, and it just implodes. Because I think you can turn on the news or read anything, and you see people in leadership just failing miserably, but not for like they're really good at what they do. They're failing because of their character and what's important to them. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to have our company be have a news line that says, yeah, the small business grew and scaled and did amazing things, but man, they were really bad to their people and bad to their customers. And man, the ownership, they were doing really gross stuff and taking advantage of people. That's not who I want to be.
All right. Thanks for your vulnerability and honesty. That's a great answer. With that answer, like, how do you promote that to your team? How do you promote this culture, this faith-based, caring for your customers, for each other? Is there a conscious or an intentional effort to do that, or is it just lead by example?
Yeah. Oh man, that's the challenge I have for the scaling side. As we grow and add people, our core values are super important. Don't just build core values because you want to, or someone told you to. They're not aspirational. They're part of our DNA.
I had to look on your website. I was happy to see that they're actually posted right on your website.
Thanks. That's who we are. It starts with the vision is where we want to go. The mission obviously is, our mission is we want to furnish comfortable homes, offer exceptional financing, and share Christ's love with everyone we serve. We think we're doing stuff. And look, we're not a church. I'm not going to sit here and say my company's a church, but I've got people in my team that have gone through some really serious stuff. I have team members of diverse backgrounds, many diverse backgrounds, that have gone through some really serious stuff, especially in keeping with the last couple of years, where I've had to learn as a leader and start shutting up and listen. Our number one core value, first one, is that people matter. We believe everyone's made in the image and glory of God and deserves, they have intrinsic value just being a person. And you have dignity and deserve to be treated with respect because you're a human being. And so I want to treat people well. So leading by example, for sure. When I first started developing these core values, I was asking around, and the CEO. This stuff, had some ideas, business principles and stuff from the 70s, but really trying to develop core values. I'm asking my father-in-law, okay, if we're going to be a faith-based company, we got to pray together, which is really weird with your father-in-law coming in and your CEO. And you do not have to, I realized in that process, like, okay, I'm getting out of my comfort zone and being stretched to go, okay, this is who we're going to be. That's our niche. That's what we do. Doesn't have to be yours. The biggest thing is being upfront with people on the front end and saying, hey, we're a Christian organization. You don't have to have any faith background. You don't have to believe. You can be anything you want or have any faith belief system to work here. But I just want you to know my default is going to be to ask you if you're going through something, can I pray for you or how can I support you? And if they're okay with it, I'll pray with them. And that's weird. I will own that. That's a very weird thing for your boss to do or say. But we want to make sure that's clear up front. And we're able to get a lot of people coming through, especially with the way the world is right now. And people are really, really frustrated, angry, upset, disappointed. There's so many emotions going around and there's not a lot of outlets for that. So being able to encourage, continue to say the core values until my people make fun of me for them. Same thing with the mission, trying to remind people. And one of the best advice I got when it comes to core values is when someone is breaking a rule, use your core values and say, this is the core value that you is the infraction. This is the problem. You broke this core value when you behaved this way. So spend a lot of time developing what are our core values going to be, and then lean into conflict. I've heard a lot of people. I've heard some say, I eat conflict for breakfast, and kind of a machismo style of way to talk about it. No, I don't go into conflict excited.
Yeah.
I think that there may be an issue if you're going into conflict excited, right. Unless you're in the military. Like I'm going into conflict with my team or my people, going, this is gonna really suck. Whatever we're gonna have to deal with, especially if it's really serious, this is gonna suck, and it's not fun. But the outcome is so worth it. It's like working out. It's gonna suck. You're gonna hate yourself for a while. But when it's done, you're going to feel so much better. It's worth it. And it's better for the longevity of yourself and your organization.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've learned, it's true. Once you get through it, you're so much better. And I think what I've learned just in conflict is to actually communicate and ask a lot of questions. Like, why, how you feel, like just kind of like instead of becoming defensive and going back to your corners, right? Yeah, people don't listen and ask during conflict, but yeah.
And that's not really taught. That's when I talk to a lot of my young leaders, I'm like, hey, raise your hand if you went through conflict 101 in high school. No, I mean, so if you're working with a workforce, I understand if you're working with white collar and a different workforce, but I'm working retail. We're all in it. And I got a lot of people that, GED or high school that are crushing it in my leadership team. And we have the opportunity to just say, hey, this is how you handle conflict. Let's model it well, lean into it, do it right. And a lot of the training for that came from Entree Leadership. I'm a big fan, but also just telling the truth, being in it, and staying calm and really trying to get the resolution that you want, which is unity of your team.
How, just talking about team, how is the staff shortages, what's going on in the world? I was going to say the country, but the world, like, yeah, how is that impacting you? Because like you mentioned earlier, you hire a lot of, probably high schoolers, 20 somethings. I mean, do you have a lot of turnover, or is it
different departments? For sure. We've definitely had our fair share of turnover, especially in sales, because we're in this struggle to provide leads through the front door. It's very difficult. The ones that are making it, and we know where we're headed. But there is a lot of grind and development of your own leads. So in my warehouse and delivery team, there's regularly some turnover there. My manager out there has done an incredible job of keeping key talent, but there's a notorious turnover, especially when you you're doing warehouse in-home furniture delivery compared to making similar amounts delivering small packages in a big box. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty tough. So we have to really truly be flexible with our team. Let them know that, one of our core values is family. We don't call you when you're off. I don't want you to call me when I'm off. We keep that separate. We want you to make sure that, you're able to take care of your family. You got something going on, we let you off. And so really trying to be flexible and treating our team members well, and making sure that we don't have gossip in the organization. Gossip is one of those things that you would think it's a simple thing. Everybody does it, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. That thing will kill your organization and make people not want to work there. We're always talking about it. In the middle of the pandemic, I was sitting there. I had a manufacturer tell me, we just need to accept a lower standard, because it's really hard. It's so hard to get people. It's so hard to retain people. We just, nobody wants to work anymore. Well, they've been saying that since the 1800s. I think New York Times posted an article that showed every different article of people saying people just don't want to work. In fact, I had an AT&T technician in my building the other day explaining to me how millennials don't want to work. And I was like, well, I'm 34. I'm a millennial.
Right.
I'm busting my tail. So I don't know what you're talking about. But it's the idea of being able to love your people well and explain a really good vision and, having open hands. When I had this guy tell me we need to accept a new low, I started to believe it for a second. And I had some peers in a mastermind group. They were like, dude, what are you talking about? Don't accept a new low. That's what your competition's doing. You have the opportunity for that to be a key differentiator. And I went in and that made complete sense to me. We were having such a hard time getting team members to just take payments and take care of my customers in the front end, because we are a lender. So that's a huge part of our business. And so I was just like, well, maybe we just need a cashier that can just sit there and smile. No. We need to keep our standard high. And people the biggest issue, people were starting to, I had team members that were starting to just not show up or show up late, significantly late, super hungover or whatever's going on, and we're trying to figure this out and going, okay, how do we change this dynamic? And we just had to lean into our discipline in the midst of the pandemic when everyone's saying, hey, you got to accept less. We went, nope, we're going to stick to our standard. We're going to say, hey, look, we love you. Do whatever you need to do. I mean, if you're out and about, call us, at least tell us, work with your team, come in late or what have you, do your thing. And that's been super helpful. Trying to incentivize my leadership or my company for referrals. If you have really good, awesome people working for you and you pay them money to find other people, you still have to do the work with Indeed or ZipRecruiter and all that other stuff. Wow. But I found most of my leadership has come from this one major retailer that went out of business, and they just keep finding them for me and saying, hey, I got this person. What? And they're all like, oh yeah, we used to work with that person was amazing. You should bring them on. And it's been amazing being able to stay at the staff level that we want to be at. So we're currently fully staffed, just not for the new endeavor. So now I have to look into all of those positions, which we probably need to hire about 10 to 15 people in the next few months.
So that's going to be a big cash flow crunch too, right? Because you're building out this new place. You're going to have to hire a bunch of people. So that must be tough getting through that even.
It's extremely tough. It's not fun at all.
I hope you have a good bank, a good relationship.
Yeah, we have a good financial partner. We're actually working to try to tie up some of the real estate side to try to button that stuff up. We've got it, taken care of on the front end, and now we're trying to restructure that debt for the building and the remodel and put it all into one thing, as well as try to sell and develop the property around. We're fortunate that we have no business doing this stuff. Like me and my father-in-law have no freaking clue. We have learned this on the job. We have a great financial partner that's done development and stuff. And we've seen some of my friends that we were at the same size and they shot up to many, many times our size doing some of these key things. And I've been able to call them and ask them, and they've given me input. So again, we're extremely fortunate. We have no business playing in these waters, but now we're starting to learn them now that we're here. But yeah, we're always trying to figure out better partners for lending relationships. And in the midst of these crazy waves with how lending practices have been over the last 2 to 3 years, it's insane. But being in the AR business with customers, we're no stranger to cash flow being just always challenging.
Yeah. I mean, early in my career, I was an auditor with a big CPA firm, and one of my first clients was I don't know if you remember Zare or Ames stores.
Ames, yeah, I remember Ames.
Yeah, so they were like a Target or one of
Yeah.
these stores. They're out of business now, but I just remember as an auditor learning like their main business, a lot of it was real estate. It wasn't necessarily just the retail. A lot of it was around the real estate and where they made their money with these plazas, these 99-year leases that, and leasing out space. It was a whole different business. But real quickly, I wanted to just circle back to the core values.
Sure.
We practice EOS, which is a operating system. And one of the things we do, so we came up with our core values. I read them to the team and I continually read them to the team. But we also, on a regular basis, look at our employees, our team, and see how they relate back to the core values. And I'm not sure how this would work for you, but some team members may not hit those core values, and we try to enforce it. But if they don't, if they have too many kind of, there's a plus and a minus. If they have too many minuses, they become toxic to the team. And I don't know if you've seen that or had to deal with that, when you're looking at your values and you're saying, hey, they're not hitting these. And it's just, we could tell because of the way, things are happening in their environment.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm taking note of that to do an audit of our team. We do not use EOS. I know a lot of the people that come on here do. Super interested in vetting that out. My team will kill me if I try to launch anything else right now, but
No.
but I am very interested in it. And I'm a big reader, audiobook guy. And so having the opportunity, somebody once said, the only difference in a year from now will be the people you surround yourself with and the books you've read. And those two things have made, I try to keep that in mind at all times. What we found with the core values, get your leadership team on board, say it again. You got to say it so many times until your people are making fun of you for it. And then when you have someone that doesn't live up to it, go to them and say, hey, our core value, I have an example, permission to screw up. That comes from a book by Kristen Hadid, one of the best books I've ever read on the planet, for business leadership. And the principle is, if you screw up, or when you screw up, I should say, when you screw up, tell the truth, tell it yourself, and tell it quickly. If I have to hear it from somebody else, that's a problem. If you lie to me, obviously that's a problem. But just tell the truth, tell it yourself, tell it quickly. Don't wait for this to drag on. No one's ever been fired for screwing up. I've lost this company more money than any one of my team members through stupid decisions that I've made, or screw ups. We all screw up. So being able to mention that, I had a team member that straight up did something dumb, and it was, kind of violated some gossip issue as well as their permission to screw up. And I knew what had happened, and I just said, hey, this is what happened. I don't appreciate it. It doesn't work here. Here are the core values that are being broken. And it took probably a few minutes of conversation, direct communication for the team member to finally go, okay, well, I kind of did that. And you go, see, that's not okay. It's not okay to have this pulled out of you. And after that direct conversation, it got really, really good. They took a job somewhere else pretty quick after that. I haven't had to fire that many people as long as we can get in there, have verbal warnings, coachings, have written warnings when you have to, and then finally have basically an emotional firing where you're saying, hey, if you can't abide by these core values, it doesn't make you a bad person. We don't have to get mad to break up. but you do have to leave. That's if you're firing them. But before then, you say, I don't know if you got what it takes to live by these core values. Do you? And issue a challenge. And a lot of times people will self-select out and want to come back. Or you got people that, it's just not my company. I love my company. It's not the right fit for everybody. Sure. There's people are going to be way better suited for other jobs. So that's kind of how we handle it here. But I do love the regimented approach of being able to start looking at, hey, how is our team doing health wise, living to these standards? Something I'm going to have to really, really think through.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff you don't have to do the whole, EOS system, but there's a lot of pieces of it like, hey, that makes sense. Like our core values, and like I said, I'm happy to see you have them right on your website. That's a lot of companies don't, or they don't even have core values, and that's a bigger issue. But when we're hiring people, we kind of refer back to we tell them what our core values are, but we're always looking at that. Do they, for us, do they ask the why? Are they going to be a team player? There's like certain ones, and as we're going through an interview process, we're like, can we vet this out of them?
Yeah,
because everyone's gonna. A lot of people will tell you yes when when you're interviewing them that they can do things or they have certain traits, but we try to figure that out. So interviewing,
or that they can speak another language.
That's a whole other topic. Interviewing, but cool. I just want to. I know we've spoken for a while, so just kind of let's talk about you real quick, and we'll wrap it up. Just where you from? You from Texas? Where'd you go to school? And just a little background and what your passions are, and
yeah, sure. So born in Arlington, Texas, moved up to New York, lived in New York from age 10 to 18, most of my formative years. Had lots of injuries, obviously dealt with lots of abuse. So I have had some lingering issues there and depression, and went back down to Cooper, Texas. My parents bought some land. They wanted to raise alpacas, which is during that alpaca boom that happened a long time ago, and that did not work. Then they wanted to raise goats. So I moved down there, lived down there for about a year on my own, going to college and taking care of goats on a farm from New York. So that was quite the change.
Goats are very smart, right? They're like dogs.
Incredible. I mean, I would have goats if I could. I live in the suburbs now, but I can't. Yeah. But I loved it and I hated it at the same time. Taught me a lot. Started going to Texas A&M University of Commerce. I've broken a ton of bones, and so I re-injured my back. Withdrew from commerce and just got a job because student loans keep coming. So I had to start paying those back, and then was fortunate enough to finish school online. Coming back on here with our current company, I was able to work through school, and father-in-law was incredible to be able to help me through that process just on the funding side, and give me enough bandwidth and leeway to be able to finish that. I don't think with my ADD and my background, I could have gone to night school and made that happen while still running a 40, 50 hour job. So definitely not well pedigreed, and a lot of School of Hard Knocks and a lot of reading and learning from other people that did go to Princeton and Harvard and all these other things. So, that's kind of an educational background. Now I live in Richardson, Texas, and which is just a hop skip from my store. And I have another store in a rural market. My warehouse is offsite. So traveling between those stores. My wife, my incredible wife, is still with the company some, but she's also running around trying to take care of my two kids. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. They're awesome. Wow. And so my wife also does the brand marketing. You see her in commercials and stuff if you're ever on our YouTube channel. But we're also just huge nerds. So my wife and I've always grown up nerds, love tabletop RPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, anything that you can think of, some of the nerdiest stuff on the planet, stuff that I would have gotten beat up for when I was younger if I wasn't as large a guy as I am. So we just tried to.
I'm surprised it's still around. We played D&D back when I was in high school.
I love it. Yep, it was not cool back then, and we had to hide it. And there's a huge resurgence in that community now. So
we were like the kids from Stranger Things.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We watched that for that reason. We're like, oh man, that's totally right. So it's just nerds arguing about math and having great time. So I spent a lot of time at my church and volunteering with the kids and just trying to develop community. And that's why D&D's had a resurgence, because it's about in-person community or virtual community. Yeah.
Face to face or around a table. It's just, no, this has been cool. I'm looking forward to your success. So I'd love to like come back in a year and talk to you about it too. If you have a third or fourth store would be kind of cool. And
for sure.
Yeah. And it's great to hear that like family's really big, and it's in whether it's in the business as well as your obviously personal life. I think that's awesome. And you've come a long way. And thanks for your vulnerability again, your honesty. This has been really good podcast. It's nice.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff. Love doing it. Love.
So people want to connect with you. You have your website, your company website is qualityhome.com.
Correct. Yeah. You can send a text through there, ask for me, or you can, my email's out there. You can just send it to jordan@qualityhome.com. Feel free to shoot me an email. Love to connect with anybody that, just like you said, entrepreneurs, we're all trying to help each other, and especially retail. It takes a special breed of crazy, to be in retail. And, that's who I am. So, would love to connect with anybody that wants to chat.
You're also on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Do you have like an Instagram or Pinterest or anything like that?
No, that's all in my company. I do not have the time to maintain it. I tried to set up a TikTok, shot one video, and then I was like, I do not have the bandwidth to do this. We do it all for the company. So,
wait, I'm curious now what the TikTok video was.
It was a video of our building. Now we blew up a couch for July 4th. We were trying to do anything we could to get marketing. So it's on YouTube and TikTok. And I found out in Texas, you can just buy they call it a target, but it's something called tannerite. I knew nothing about. My marketing, my folks that help with social media, like, oh yeah, you can just get tannerite. I was like, okay, so we need to figure out where we're going to get that, when we're going to go to this range, when we're going to set up the sofa to blow it up. And they were just like, oh, no, the explosives, no problem. It's just, we got to figure out when we're going to get there. And I was like, only in Texas is the explosive, no problem.
No problem.
So, but anyways, it was a blast, and no pun intended. Yeah. The opportunity to blow that up and do weird stuff. I don't know. We're trying anything we can to try to get people in the dang door. So,
well, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank anyone who's listening or watching, and hopefully, if you like it, subscribe, share it. Hopefully we learned something today, or, something piqued your interest. I know I did, and I look forward to talking to you, Jordan, in the future. I look forward to seeing your success. And if I'm in Texas, I'm going to stop by Quality Home.
Love it. Please do.
Thanks again. And this has been another episode of Leaders Who Scale. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at leaderswhoscale.com. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class services and cutting-edge tools that help businesses grow and succeed.